Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Waterloo Community School Board of Education to order, please. Thank you. And with that, we'll begin with a moment of silence. And now will you all please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next we'll have the reading of the mission statement from Angela.
The Waterloo Schools community commits to a comprehensive system of education and support to assure that each and every student will graduate prepared for college, career, and citizenship, as evidenced by continued education, pursuing a career path, and contributing to the community.
Thank you. Nice to see a nice packed house tonight. Thanks for coming out on this cold December evening. We're going to get our meeting started. Our first item of business tonight is item A on page 1. It is a public hearing on our instructional support levy, and I'd like to declare that hearing open and turn it over to Michael Coughlin.
Thank you. For the hearing portion, I'm not going to go through the program. The hearing is basically set to see if there's any concerns, questions from the public. We can certainly do that and then answer any questions that may come up, but I will do the review of the instructional support levy on the agenda item.
With that said, is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and address the board tonight about our instructional support levy? Don't be shy. All right. Seeing no one, then I'm going to move to close the hearing. So moved. And a second? Second. Thanks. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And the chair votes aye. Motion carried. The next item on our agenda is item B on page 4. It is a board celebration. These are always the best things we get to do. And with that, Tara Thomas is coming up.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Anna Mae Weems and Jeff Zapital to come up as well. They're a part of my crew. Back in January, I had the pleasure of joining Anna Mae and some other local residents as part of Urban Potential. From that, a lot has materialized. Thanks to Jeff Zapital, an East grad, and the support of Dan Deary, his employer, we've been able to really springboard this whole cultural competency piece into a program that now is involving students both within our district and surrounding districts. So it's just my pleasure to share an update on where this initial maybe 5-person group has taken us under Anna Mae's tutelage. And the one piece that's really exciting is we were able to get a donation of, I believe it was 1,000, I have it down here in my notes, 1,500 educational DVDs were donated for Eastern Iowa school districts by way of Anna Mae's granddaughter who works in the White House. She referred us to a nonprofit in DC that was looking for a place for these to land. So thanks to this student group, Operation Exchange is what we're calling it, we've been able to bring together different students all under the umbrella of cultural competency and just respecting one another's differences. And just real quickly, I'll share a story. Anna Mae had gone up to Waverly, invited to speak about her storied history, clearly, in civil rights and how much of an impact she's made locally. And when she discovered that some of the students and staff in Waverly had talked about taking a trip down to see where Dr. King had been involved in historical elements of his life down in Tennessee, she said, you don't have to go all the way down to Tennessee. You can just come 10 miles down the road to Waterloo and get some of the exposure and really sharing of different backgrounds that you may not always see in a Waverly or a more rural setting. And so that's what sort of helped to springboard us into having Waverly come together with Cedar Valley Catholic Schools, our district, in the spring. Then in the summer, it culminated with this DVD donation sharing. And I'll quickly share this video that really encapsulates what we were aiming for.
Operation Exchange is a goal for students to come together from different backgrounds, different schools. It allows us to understand. Operation Exchange is a goal for students to come together from different backgrounds, different schools. It allows us to understand. Operation Exchange is a goal for students to come together from different backgrounds, different schools. It allows us to understand their stories and what they've gone through and allow us to learn from those experiences. And then today we are sorting these DVDs out for a part of community service.
What a great way to bring them on a non-competitive area so they can discuss issues and just have fun. So that's what it's all about.
I think it's great for like the schools to come together so that we can make some changes.
I'm really actually excited about the atmosphere because at Waverly it's just not as big as like Waterloo School, so it's going to be a cool atmosphere to learn about.
It's really fun to learn about different cultures and experience it, so this program I think will really help with that.
You can get to know people from different backgrounds, from different neighborhoods, so that you can bond and build through maybe service projects or partnerships, the kind of relationships that you can't learn out of a book. So from that, we were able So from that, then we were able to decide what will the next step be, and there is a traveling exhibit that Dan Deary sponsors that really highlights African American history locally and beyond, that travels around in Eastern Iowa and really beyond across the state. So from that, we said, let's bring in some voices in person, not just the exhibit. So Justin Galbraith, a teacher at West, in one of his classes, he had talked to some students about what can we do to really reinforce this side of our history locally. So that connected back to NMA. The exhibit was brought in, and then as part of it, we did this civil rights panel at West, and we brought Dr. Barbara Wester and Rudy Jones, Representative Deb Berry, and Anna May to be panelists in this forum that we did recently. So here's a quick summary video.
I made it because I don't give up self-respect and who I am spiritually to anybody. And that's what these people are saying too. They believed in themselves, and you can too.
I have a passion for young adults, and I just want to teach them, help them.
Johnson opened the door for us that we could go to college.
I always say, if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. You have to know your history. You have to understand that the journey that they're on, it was paved by other people.
And the thing that we have to remember is, this is our country, the best country in the world, and only way can we get ahead by working together.
I need to help them to understand why it's important. And now that I'm 88, I find out now it's best that what I should do now is to see what I can do to help these kind of things, be a part of it.
And what I'm trying to do is establish some form of continuity from where I came from to where I'm at to where I'm going. And so when I pass the baton back, it'll be somebody that's ready and capable to carry it forward. There's not the type of obstacles in front of you that were in front of us. And it's a shame if you don't take advantage of every opportunity to be the best person you can be.
So I wanted to give Anna Mae and Jeff just a quick chance to say a couple words, and I just appreciate so much the opportunities that we've been able to offer these students and the growth personally and professionally that I've had from the connection with these two. And the really cool thing is that Andrew Wind and the Courier, they picked up a great piece on Operation Exchange and included it in their Inclusion magazine, also ran it in the Courier. The Des Moines Register picked it up, and Anna Mae has already been contacted by some folks in Des Moines who are saying, hey, this is the kind of thing that we'd like to do in our school system as well. So it's great when something that we're doing can set the tone for beyond the Cedar Valley. So Anna Mae and Jeff, would you like to say something?
Thank you. I didn't know tonight, Madam Chairman, Madam President, Madam Chair. All right. I was going to take Mr. Young. I thought he was still the president. And so there's been a change. There's been a new sheriff in town. And Mr. Superintendent, all the school board and friends, I had to make a great decision tonight. I didn't know whether I was going to be in New York with Prince Charles or Princess Kate or come here. So I want you to know I come here tonight. Tonight, I want you to know that I'm here because you have a fireball. My friend, she working me to death. I'm retiring. She is working us to death. That's what we did. We just dropped it, and she took and made what it is. We just dropped the seed. She made it. And I'm so happy that we have Tara with us. Tara gives us support. Today we had a talk to I had the bright idea. I wanted the President of the United States to come to Waterloo, Iowa, and bring Eric Holder and talk about the riots. We had the biggest riot. And I thought, well, if he come here, I had the biggest riot. I've got more blacks in the state, and he need to bring the president. So in calls, we got the call in because of Tara and Jeff Zappato and some more people. We got Mr. What's his name? Senator Grassley called. Hello? I said, Chuck, how you doing? I said, you know, you brought me back when I got in the White House. I didn't know how to get out of there. You got me out of there. And he said, well, yeah. I said, well, he said, what do you want? I said, we want you to bring the president. He said, I ain't bringing no president there to spend that money on that plane just to make a speech and go back home. I said, oh, well, what we want you to do is to tell him that we're doing something in Waterloo, Iowa. We just need him here. And so he's coming. So I want you to know that Tara she germinates all our seeds, and she makes it good. And we're here because of her. I have been with the school board all my life. Mrs. Smith here, her mother was one of ours that worked all the time, and been here all the time. And here we are, as old as I am, 88 years old, and wanted to make sure that I keep the work going. But I'm through with it. Tara's got it going, and you got it going. So I would like to tell you that we have Jeff Zappato, who is East High School, and we had a meeting over at East High School, and they had all the coffee for the other people with the honors. And there was just Jeff and I, 8 other, and we said we're going to do something about our school. Jeff has kept the promise. So tonight I said to you, thank you for letting us be here. Thank you for that wonderful show that we went to West High. It was awesome. Jeff has a show that is just awesome. We need it in Hollywood. And you have sent people to Urban Potential, and every one of those persons in Urban Potential have come out and done something for this school system. So I want to thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Anna Mae.
Well, Anna's a tough act to follow, so I'll keep it brief. But I just want to thank you all for being a part of it too. And we've tried to do a lot of things, try to help the community. We're always trying to help the school system. Anna and I have saw several needs, and we try to address them and give a couple ideas to Tara. She's terrific. She does a great job. So she takes off and runs with the things that we keep throwing out. We're good at throwing ideas, bouncing them off the wall. Tara kind of consolidates them and actually makes them work. So we really appreciate her, and we appreciate all the support we get from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That is a tough act to follow.
I just want to say, Anna Mae, you're a real treasure for Waterloo. You really are. You're the history as well. And in addition to that, for some of us that have some significant gray hair, 88, my goodness. I hope.
Yeah.
I just hope we would be half as active and look at half as well as you do at 88. So congratulations.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the next item on our agenda is equally as exciting. It is on page 5. It's item C, Exhibit C, and it is a new partnership recognition with Kingsley Elementary. So Crystal, and I think I see Miss Amber.
Okay, tonight we actually have two Partner in Ed signings. This first one is going to be for Kingsley Elementary. The University of Iowa Community Credit Union, which is new to the Cedar Valley. They have a location in Cedar Falls, will be joining Kingsley. So I'm going to turn it over to Amber to have her talk a little bit about Partners in Ed.
Perfect. And this is super exciting because this is my first time actually coming for welcoming somebody new to Partners in Ed for Waterloo Schools. So we're really excited to talk about what our future is going to be. We are actually third grade teacher, and the counselor and I are going to University of Iowa Credit Union on Wednesday so we can have more of a dialogue about what it can be, because sky's the limit. That's the beautiful thing about Partners in Ed. It can be whatever works best for them and us together collectively for our young people. So I just want to give them a warm welcome as our Partner in Ed for Kingsley and for our bigger family of Waterloo schools. So welcome.
All right. Well, I first just wanted to say thank you for allowing us to do this opportunity. Our organization as a whole is very about in getting involved in our communities and everything like that. And really, we're just kind of looking for something where we can help out, if, whether it be funding for a little event or cookies or anything like that, where we can come help out bodies at anything. But overall, we just really wanted to be able to find a partner where we can go do some things in the community, get our name out there as well, but also just kind of help out wherever it's needed, and then we'll kind of figure out more as we start working together. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Kingsley's lucky to have you. And then the next item on our agenda is also another new partnership recognition, and it's Exhibit D on page 6. And I know Mrs. Trask is here, and
Yes, so tonight we also have Orange Elementary is also receiving a new Partner in Ed. PepsiCo will be joining them, and they actually have already been working with them for a couple of months, so now it's going to be official. So, Ms. Trask?
Yes, thank you. We have Steve and Carl here from PepsiCo, and we have Lori Fairbanks, our kindergarten teacher, and Carol Boyce, our ELP teacher, on behalf of our partners in education from the Orange side, and Carl and Steve, obviously, from PepsiCo. And last year, if you recall, we were able to bring on Amy Weenan's team, and we're excited tonight to bring on PepsiCo. Our group synergizes all the time on ways that we can take the students out to the community and have the community come into our school. And actually, in January, PepsiCo has invited our student leaders to come and do a presentation. And we look at that as a serious win-win because the students are working on their presentation skills, and they have an official conference room with all the bells and whistles. So it is our Dress for Success Day, and they will be out working with Pepsi on that day and getting some feedback from Pepsi. So unbeknownst to me, when I found out that PepsiCo was coming on, I had all kinds of ideas, but I did not know until I read what they had submitted. It says the mission of the organization, it says the power of Pepsi, win as one. And those of you that know, Orange Elementary is a Leader in Me school, and win-win is high on our agenda. So we are excited about Pepsi and Orange Elementary coming together and doing just that, winning as one for our kids. So please give a warm welcome to Steve and Carl from PepsiCo, and welcome.
Steve or Carl, do you want to say?
Just a few little fun facts about us. We're located here in Waterloo. We have about 85 employees at our facility. We deliver about 2.2 million cases a year. We deliver to 8 counties in Iowa. And a few fun facts. So I didn't memorize these ones, but everybody thinks of Pepsi. Pepsi and Diet Pepsi and Mountain Dew and those great brands. We also have a lot of other brands that some people might not know that we actually own and deliver. So just here out of this facility, we'll deliver 36,000 cases of Starbucks products, 51,000 cases of Gatorade products, 115,000 cases of Aquafina products, and 129,000 cases of Lipton tea products. So not only do we do soft drinks, we do some, healthy side beverages as well.
Blue Zone approved, Steve. Blue Zone
approved. And Carl's going to say a few things about what we, like she had mentioned, we've already had some opportunity to help out Orange over the past few months, and what we have planned for the future.
How we doing?
So as Steve mentioned, we've been engaged in a couple of different things already with Orange Elementary. We participated in in a Thanksgiving drive. We've adopted a few families for Christmas, and I believe the final one was Steve, help me out. The Pop Tops. That's right. The Pop Tops for Ronald McDonald. I had everything written down just in case. But we're looking forward to of course the Leader in Me program that we're going to be hosting for Orange. One thing that's very, very big about our organization is leadership, not only in business but also in the community. Because I mean, civil the community is always about taking lead and also bolstering whatever programs can be available for those in need. So that's one thing that's very big and high on our agenda as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome to all of you. Hey. The crowd thins. The next item on our agenda is another great thing. It's a donation from Tyson Foods Foundation, and it is Exhibit E on page 7. And Ellen, I know you're here, and
I'd like you to welcome Gwen Timmerman, and she is the community liaison for our local Tyson Foods, and she is here tonight to represent the Tyson family and their very generous gift. Overall, Tyson's Foods Foundation gave $50,000 to Teammates Mentoring, the program overall, and then they identified that in each of the communities where there was a Tyson facility that we would each receive $5,000. So one day, just in my email, totally unexpected, I got this message that I was getting, that Waterloo Schools Teammates Program was getting a very generous $5,000 donation from Tyson. So we have a nice check here to symbolize that, and the purpose of this money is to help support our program, and one of the commitments I've made is to support 10 new matches with this money. So I'll give Gwen a chance to speak to you.
Sure. On behalf of Tyson Fresh Meats, the local office, we do want to present the check for $5,000 tonight. And the $50,000 went to several different states where the Tyson plants are at, couple in Iowa included. So we're just really excited to be part of anything with the Waterloo Schools. We consider ourselves kind of a unique partner a lot of times with the diversity, but this mentoring program too, we fully support. And are just very proud to be able to present the check. I believe she's officially already received the check, but we wanted to let the board know our support tonight.
And give the board an opportunity to thank.
Absolutely,
Yes,
Gwen.
yes.
Thank you so much for this generous gift that we're going to accept in just a...
Sure.
I didn't know if we needed a motion. You know, before we actually take it, can we vote that we're going to take it? Let's do that first. If that's all right with you. Let's make, that's all right. No, it's fine. It's probably me that didn't do it right. So, I'd love to get a motion on the floor to accept and acknowledge the donation in the amount of $5,000 from Tyson Foods Foundation for the 2014-2015 school year.
So move.
Thanks, Andrea. And a second?
I'll second.
Great.
With gratitude.
Yes.
With much gratitude.
Yes.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 And those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. We happily accept. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe little bits and pieces of us.
Thanks again. The next item on our agenda is information from individuals and delegations. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to address the board? And if so, please come forward and state your name and address. All right, seeing no one, we'll move on to our consent agenda. And tonight, the consent agenda consists of the minutes of the November 24th, 2014 regular board meeting, personnel and appointments and adjustments, bills due and payable between board meetings, and the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa Memorandum of Understanding. Are there any items that anyone would like to see removed?
Letter I.
Letter I?
And for me, letter H, the bills due and payable.
And letter
I'll
H.
abstain, so we're down to just 2.
Okay, right, so we're down to item F and item G. Can I get a motion to approve those, put those items out, please?
I'll second.
Thanks. All those in favor of approving item F and item G on the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carries. And then we'll move to item H on page 13. The Board of Education approved the bills due and payable and the bills paid between board meetings.
So move.
Can I get that motion and second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
And just before discussion, I'll abstain from voting on this because this is an attorney. I represent a client who's paid by one of the bills.
Okay. Is there anybody have any comment further? All right, all those in favor of approving item H on page 13, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Abstain. Yeah.
Chair votes aye. Motion carried. And we'll move on to item I on page 21.
Board of Education approved the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northeast Iowa Memorandum of Understanding for 14-15 school year to be renewed annually in August unless one of the parties informs the other in writing.
That motion on the table, can I get a second?
Second.
And discussion? Ellen, would you mind coming forward? Thank you.
Mike Lind is here with us this evening, and he's the director for the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. So if you would like, I don't know if you want to address the board? Or?
I would just like to say thank you for the partnership that we've had over the last several years. I'm new to the organization, but I know it's been a good partnership, and we look forward to working together here in the future. So thank you.
And we certainly appreciate the support from Big Brothers Big Sisters. I personally am a mentor in the Big Brothers Big Sisters program because that program was in place before Teammates was in place. And so the young lady I mentor, we started in 5th grade and now she's a senior. So it's kind of unique that I coordinate one program and mentor through another. But there's no way that one mentoring program can provide all the mentors that our students need. So it's wonderful to have this partnership because they do provide school-based mentors, but also the community-based mentoring option as well, which is very important.
Mike, about how many mentors do you have currently, and are you looking for more?
Yes, we're always looking for more, to answer that question first. We have probably about 250, but that would include all of Black Hawk and Bremer County, so not just specific to Waterloo Community Schools school-based mentors. But yes, we have about 250. We're always looking for more.
How would someone go about becoming a mentor if they were interested?
Basically just reaching out to us, via the web or phone or coming in and visiting us. There's an enrollment period. It's pretty extensive as far as background checks and orientation and things like that because we want to ensure child safety is number one. So there's a little bit of a process, but I'm sure Ellen will agree most mentors get just as much out of it as the children do, and it's a very necessary program in the community. So.
Absolutely. That's great. 250, that's a lot.
Yeah.
So.
And I just had a couple questions reading through this. I just wondered how the students are selected to participate in the program. It said
students are selected that have identified need or desire for a positive role model. So how do you guys, your selection process? And then secondly, I noticed that you only have specific schools, and just wondered how those schools were chosen to be part of the mentor program.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the children aren't necessarily selected. They're going to come to us more so by referral, whether it be from the schools, from a teacher, a counselor, something like that. Maybe another organization that serves children, DHS. Occasionally the family or the child themselves may know about our organization and our program and want to be a part of it. So it's more a referral basis. As far as the schools, as far as the history that I know, our organization was around. We've been around for about 50 years in the area. There was a time where we, and currently still, don't have the capacity to serve the Waterloo schools with the size of our organization, and so that's why Teammates was brought on. So at that time, basically the schools were split, and we, within the Waterloo schools, within our school-based program, we share the Waterloo schools. And so those schools on that list have stayed that way since then. I believe that was in '07. Does that sound right? It might be on the MOU. But we did add this year, because I know some discussion has come up as to, should we add schools, should we swap schools, that type of thing. So we will review every August to see, before a new school year starts, if we need to realign those, the schools that we're each serving.
And obviously, our students move, and the schools you've identified are elementary and middle schools, and kids go on high schools. So there's Teammates and Big Brothers Big Sisters, but it kind of was just a way to focus resources in a more efficient way, I think, by Big Brothers Big Sisters being able to focus on specific schools.
One other thing I'd like to point out, and I know it's clearly stated in there, but just to point out once again, we also do a community-based program, so any child in the Waterloo schools, or really any child in Northeast Iowa, would be able to take part in that program. They wouldn't have to attend one of those schools that are specified for that program. So. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any further questions? Anything else? With that, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. The motion carries, and the chair votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you both for being here tonight. The next item on our agenda this evening is the 2015-2016 High School Planning Guide / Course Guide. It's Exhibit J on page 24. And I'd like to get that motion on the table. The recommended motion is that the Board of Education approve the 2015-2016 High School Planning Guide / Course Catalog.
And I'll second.
A second. And with discussion, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lindeman, and then I know Mr. Van Cleve and Dr. Lee.
Yeah, we're excited tonight to bring to you the High School Planning Guide, formerly known as the Program of Studies. And we have Mark Van Cleve and Debbie Lee, as well as other people in the crowd who are very knowledgeable about what we're discussing tonight. Just a couple opening comments, and I'm going to try really hard not to steal any of your thunder. But I just wanted to mention ahead of time, this course catalog is coming to you with, I'm going to move that back a little bit because it's pretty loud. This course catalog is coming to you with quite a bit of involvement from the staff, which is really a great thing because we need them involved in various ways all along the process or all throughout the process. However, there's a lot of work to come because getting it to this point is one piece of it, but then making it actually play out is another. So that was just one thing I wanted to mention. And the second thing is that what you're going to see tonight and what you're going to hear about is really a beautiful foundation to the high school reform. As we did the town hall meetings, one of the questions that came up because people were pretty excited about what we were talking about, and the question was almost always asked at every meeting, are you just going to wait for 3 or 4 years, or is there anything we can do in the meantime? And I think what you're going to see tonight is really a nice step in getting ready for that. And another question that came up quite a bit is how can we help students know how to better plan? And how can we help our counselors and assist them with resources that would serve them well? And so as you look at the beginning parts of this, which I know that they're gonna review, but you're gonna notice some great tools for the counselors as we go through this, because they can actually help students better plan for their 4 years, kind of a quick reference guide or kind of an at-a-glance guide, and I'm really excited about that. Debbie and Mark can tell you how excited I was when they brought it to me the first time to look at. I said, it's beautiful. So we know that there's still some revisions on it, maybe some of them conceptually, but a lot of them just logistics or some proofing that we've already started to do. We've noticed some mistakes just in typing and that kind of thing, formatting, a couple formatting errors, but you're getting the draft right off the press. So we'll take your comments tonight, and we'll go back to the drawing board, and we'll continue our work as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Debbie and Mark.
Well, you know, it's with great delight that I can stand in front of you with a newly revised program of studies. This will make, I think, the 13th or 14th year that I've actually been involved with the program of studies, minimally the last several years, but being able to bring that back and partner with Mark. And I want to thank Mark for his great vision in the CTE area and how he and I partnered together to bring this new vision for what we need to be doing. Also, I want to thank the teachers and the administrators who are out here, as well as Charisse, who is our advanced programming director. Without the background of the teachers, the administrators, Charisse and others, we wouldn't have this. We depended on a lot of their work. We would push things out and say, can you do this? Can you do this? And so if you're an administrator or teacher, would you please just stand so we can see that? I know Marla was going to be here as well from East High, but she is out of town tonight. Please stand. Yay.
Yay, thank you.
So first, I just have to thank them, and especially Mark, with the vision that he's bringing in for CTE and what we can do based on that. I am very, very excited about bringing this revised planning guide to you for approval. We are very confident in our work. We're proud of the accomplishments that we have done thus far. But, and that's a big but, we are very much aware that this is the next step, not the end step, but the beginning step in the 21st century high school reform journey that we are taking. We have multiple steps yet to come. We are absolutely not done with where we need to go, but we believe this is a great beginning and a great first step. This guide, or planning guide, reflects the programming that we can currently implement and creates a foundation for us to move forward on. And I think that's important. It was deliberately created, revised. It's been targeted as a first step in a 3 to 4 year journey that we believe that we are on. This guide also continues the shift, and I want you just to think about that we're working on, that will assist students as well as their parents to be able to reflect on the students' post-high school life. And so we want to hook this learning to what they are planning for the rest of their life, because high school especially is really a jumping off place for what they're going to do in the next 60 years. So it's really important. We've designed deleted revised pages that are up front. These are specifically designed to help the counselors, as Jane said, and guide the students and counselors, and will assist the parents as well. So what I want you to do is make sure that you have your exhibit open to page 24. And I'm going to ask Mark, I've kind of gone through a little bit of the background here, but Mark is now going to talk to you a little about the organizational structure in regard to career clusters, the career pathways, and the plans of study.
Do I have to start talking to this?
Yeah.
Okay. My voice carries, so I mean.
It's for the
Hello.
20,000 viewers.
Okay. Essentially, what we did is Marley Schools was already based upon the career cluster model. And what I did is I actually just kind of reorganized everything so it actually was actually going to do the career cluster model as we move forward. And so there are 16 career clusters nationwide. we'll be offering 13 of the 16 moving forward. So that gives 13 significant choices. But within that framework, we're offering 15 pathways within those 13 career clusters. So if you think of it this way, a career cluster is like the big umbrella, but underneath there's little pieces that you can do underneath it. And so essentially what I've done is really reorganized our offerings to move away from the avocational pieces that are non-transferable credit, that are kind of low-level, low-rigor programs, to more of a high-rigor program, more lead toward industry-based certifications, Hawkeye Community College credit, and lead toward greater employability. And so what's going to end up happening, just like Debbie was talking about, our students and our counselors and our parents and our administrators will be able to look through this and say what makes sense to this young woman or young man as they move forward in their career. The other thing to consider is when looking at the program of studies, it's a simple document that really is easily digestible by anyone. It doesn't require that it needs to be interpreted by anyone. It's simple in its design and implementation, and it helps them make decisions as they move forward. How we arrived to this point today is this. I did my assessment of the school district and everything. I talked with the teachers, I've talked with Hawkeye, I've talked to the career coordinators, talked to the principals, and what we determined is a couple things. A, that there's an inconsistency of our program offerings from school to school. That creates an achievement gap. So one of the things that I set forth is removing the achievement gap opportunities. And so I've done as much as I could this year and say, if we offer it at East, we're going to offer it at West, because that was not the case prior to this. We were offering programs at East were not identical to West, nor were they identical at Expo. So if a student chose to transfer to a different high school, there was a loss of achievement right there. That's got to stop, and I think we've ironed that out as much as I can through this document. The second thing is, as we move forward, the dialogue between Hawkeye, the teachers, the career coordinator stuff, has been consistent and constant going forward. All teachers and all CT teachers have had personal meetings with me. We've had academy meetings by academy with CT teachers talking about this. I've met personally with the career coordinators discussing the plans of study. The administrators have seen it. All of you have actually seen it. Most of you up there have actually seen it. Everybody's kind of had an opportunity to weigh in on it, help guide it, and craft it as a collaborative movement as we move forward. And I think we've arrived at a pretty good solution. Is it perfect? No. Is it better than we were? I think so. But as Debbie says, it's the first step on a series of steps that we need to take to move the high schools more closer to the 21st century model of a CTE and best practice of instruction.
I do have a question on your duplication. I guess I'm not sure that's directionally consistent with the philosophy of long-term not duplicating any programs.
It isn't.
No, what we did is they were offering, I'll give you an example. We were offering a program at East High School in the business department that was not offered at West, that was not offered at Expo. So a student who was at East High School who took that program, and if they chose to transfer over to Expo, there was no way to pick up that learning going forward. And so what I've decided to do is unify and make sure that whatever we do at this time is offered at East, West, and Expo, so students do not lose any achievement opportunities whatsoever. They can pick that learning mid-semester, midweek, midday, whenever they move forward.
But by requiring a critical mass of students at every facility in order to offer the course, you end up with fewer courses offered to everyone, which is a less opportunity.
Well, and this is transitional. I know what you're talking about. We have committed to trying to really eliminate the duplication of courses or the duplication of programs as much as possible, so that we don't purchase double the equipment, double the training, staff training, et cetera. But in the meantime, if there aren't enough kids to take it, that is possible that it might not be completely equitable access, or it'll be equitable access, but maybe not equitable opportunity, because there might not be enough kids at one of the buildings to offer it. That still will be in play, but we want to make sure that the offerings are there so that we can at least, so kids have the every opportunity to sign up for the course. Now, if it doesn't move forward, then that's possible. But that's always been the case, and probably still will be the case 4 years from now, but it'll be less the case, hopefully, if we don't duplicate programs. So that's a great question.
Backing on that, okay. So an East High student there's only 2 kids that want to take it. Are they allowed to go to West and take it?
Certainly, they can. Sometimes, Sue, because it takes a travel period to do that, so sometimes there's a little bit of an issue with that because the kids to go across, unless we can figure out the scheduling, maybe offer it first hour in the morning, but still there's some transportation, but they can. They absolutely can.
Because just wondering, for transfer out of the districts, we allow students out that don't have a program. The other district has the program, so I'm thinking to keep it unified within the district, we need
Certainly.
to allow them
Certainly.
to intertransfer
Absolutely,
if
they
they want
can.
the program.
Sometimes they would rather pick something else, select something else instead of doing the traveling, but absolutely.
Remember that this is taking what we have right now, realigning it, adding a little bit, deleting a lot, but it's that realignment of current programming with a little bit of addition. When we know what the outcome of the facilities and the extended programming from the task force work, we'll be able to come back to this and reshape this based on what the outcome of that is. Remember, we said this is a first step, so taking what we have, developing that a little bit better, aligning, and then moving forward from that point.
What is TBD?
To be determined.
Okay, and so that's under a lot of the electives.
Yes, there is, because we haven't fully been able to develop that, so you are going to see that.
Okay. I think this is a wonderful document because it shows what our high schools could offer. To me, it's not very user-friendly. What I mean is, it's hard to understand all of this if I was a high school student deciding that I wanted to take. And so this is where counselors are going to help.
Absolutely.
And help the parents try to
Right.
figure all this out.
Yes.
Okay.
That is their work, and we actually, just this afternoon, we set a date, have not communicated that, that's my job tonight or tomorrow, to the administrators, to the counselors. We're going to meet with them prior to winter break. We're going to talk with them about the changes, about what this is, and we're going to make a plan on how we're going to roll that out to students as well as communicate it to parents. That is part of the next steps of a lot of the work we have yet to do.
Okay. Okay.
That is a very good point, though. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And what I would add to that too is that I think some of the tools that are in here that you're going to see, like on pages 23, I think they start, the plan of study is something that might be difficult to understand on your own right now because it is new. But I'm telling you that those of us who have looked at it are really excited about, with just a little bit of education or a little bit explanation for the students and for the staff, this is going to be a beautiful tool that's going to make it a lot easier in the end. So it may be a little tricky to look at right now, but it's going to be amazingly helpful.
And just to continue, I really want to point out to you that we are trying to funnel all of our courses through a particular plan of study. So you'll notice that the International Baccalaureate is under a plan of study, that we've engaged the military sciences, JROTC, Army and Air Force, through the government and public administration, and that's their career pathway, or the career pathway is national security. And the other thing is we have the liberal arts, and then Mark is going to hand out a little bit of a surprise for you that we've been mulling this around, and after some confirmation with Jane on Friday, this was going to be a down in the future edition, and we thought, well, why should we wait if we can do it today? And so we've actually been able to create the pathways for the performing arts and a pathway for visual arts. And so this will be added when we're done and you've approved everything tonight. We've taken our current offerings and kind of plugged them in, but as Andrea had noted, we actually have more work to do on that. This is a first step. But we want students and the public to understand we have comprehensive studies. The liberal arts, we are not giving that up. What we heard from the town meetings is an emphasis. We need to make sure that emphasis is there on the comprehensive studies, which include the liberal arts, International Baccalaureate, as well as then the performing and visual arts. So we wanted to kind of surprise you with that tonight. Not intentionally, it's just we got it done about 5:30 So I thought we'd bring it down and have you take a look at it.
You made my night, Debbie. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
That was on my list, was to say, now where's music in this? Because
great.
I'm a big champion of that. So
That is, we are too.
I think it's great.
And you know that in our district, we believe in educating the whole child. We've continued to expand any of our fine arts programs. The music is growing, our music program is growing. We still believe in the visual arts and work with that. The PE, the everything. We just believe that this is what it takes to develop children. I wanted to point out to you then on page 26, there are some noteworthy revisions in here that I want to make sure that you cover. Particularly, I want to draw attention to number 8. A lot of this, we changed significantly the career and leadership development section. We actually took a lot of courses out of it and put them into those content areas and pathways that they belong, the plans of study that they belong in. So there's a great deal of change in that area. What was left is a specialized offerings. I really didn't believe we could name that section miscellaneous, so because those are important courses. But as we continue to funnel our courses into plans of study, this was one area that we're not quite ready for. Yes?
I don't think that your numbers are jiving with the books that we received, because page 26 does not have.
It's in our.
It's in the board exhibit.
It's in the board exhibit.
She's switching back and forth.
She pulled that out.
I apologize.
Thank you. I know that. I knew that. I was just seeing if you did.
Well, actually, the specialized offerings are on page 111. So if you do want to turn to the planning guide and look at 111, that's where that section now starts. Also, I wanted to point out to you that there was another revision on this that is not noted in here because we did it after we sent this to you, and that is has to do with the recommended prerequisites. So we went ahead and aligned that column between all of the charts in the content areas. And I just wanted to point out to you from our last DE site visit that we had, I believe that was in 2011, we had, the DE told us that we could not require prerequisites. We can recommend them, but we can't require them, and that has to do with limiting access to students. And if a student is ready to take a course at this point in time, they should be able to take it regardless of those prerequisites. Because students come into those classes at all levels, on a wide continuum at times. Now, recommended prerequisites, we do make sure that the student, or we try to make sure that the student is ready. And those prerequisites will allow that to happen in a much easier basis. But it doesn't mean a student couldn't take a course without that. So it's an access issue, and we wanted to make sure that you understood that, because it does have to do with what we're required to do through the DE requirements.
So any student at any time can insist on taking a course that they're not qualified for.
Well, it's how we determine whether they're qualified or not. Have you had this, or show me that you have this background learning, or what supports might you need to get you up to speed. Technically, we have very few students who engage in those classes without the recommended prerequisites, but we cannot limit students. I can't have a student come in because they haven't had this course. I would deny them access to this course. I need to have a conversation with them. What is your level of learning? What has your experience has been in that area? What makes you believe that you're ready for this? And I might bring the teacher in or something like that.
But colleges have all kinds of prerequisites, and for good reason. Why wouldn't that apply to high school?
Because we're a high school, public high school, and the DE has required that we cannot put required prerequisites in our program of studies.
But I would tell you, honestly, your point is valid in that it is never our intent to put a child in a class for which he or she is not ready. And so it may require a conversation with parents. It may require, because I've had it both ways, where sometimes a parent wants to have a child take a course that they're not ready for, and I've had it flip side, where the student wants to take it and the parent says, no, I don't think you're ready for it. So we've had those conversations, but it doesn't happen very often, because if they're not ready, we can pretty much guess what happens with their grade
and an example,
their struggles.
Right. An example would be, I had a student whose first language was Spanish. And in 9th grade, instead of her taking Spanish 1, which is pretty pretty basic for someone who doesn't know Spanish. She started in Spanish 3 and then was able to then minor in Spanish because she only needed to take one more course by the time she got to Wartburg College.
That's an excellent example.
We accelerate, when it's appropriate.
I see you have in the book, the planning guide, on page 20, there's 16 listed. You had mentioned something about 13 earlier.
Yeah, there's 16 career clusters nationwide.
Okay.
But at this time, we're prepared to offer 13 of the 16.
Okay. So that would leave out the agricultural and food?
Agricultural, I think.
Finance?
Finance and law, I believe, are the three
law.
that we're
Okay.
leaving out this time. We're offering a very weak offering of health at this time.
That's
which is
right. I didn't notice health in the book there.
it's-
That's why I was asking about that.
I'm struggling with the piece of it, how to really market it in terms of here, because we don't have a health teacher in Waterloo, and we also don't have a health classroom. So we're going to offer the same thing we offered last year, which is basically at Hawkeye Community College. And so I want to market that, but there's a lot of work to do in that area to really to bring that out.
The reason I mentioned that is with Allen and a lot of very good institutions in the area relating to health, that seems like it would be a natural for our system.
It's as I was telling Dr. Lindemann last week, as we move forward and grow the programs, health is going to be probably one of the most significant offerings as we move forward, because the occupational forecast is so strong and the career path is incredibly rich, and it's such a great opportunity for our students.
So it's just a matter of getting the staff aligned then.
The staff and the facilities and everything kind of in place to move forward.
Okay.
And not to I guess to plug the high school reform, there are just certain things we just can't offer because we do not have the facilities. We don't, in some cases, we don't have the instructor, but even if we did have the instructor, we don't have the facilities nor the equipment or materials to do that. And that is the case in some cases.
So our thoughts on agriculture, I mean, we kind of are close to agriculture. Maybe.
It's a good thought. Last year we offered a Principles of Horticulture, which I will call a terminal offering. It was a one course that led to nothing. And so in career and technical education, we wanted to be able to do the deep dive in a content area. The Planet certification is what we will be looking at. Now, I believe, I might be misquoting this, but I believe Waterloo Schools has 330 acres of tended landscape, in which actually provides a very rich opportunity for an urban horticulture program. And so working with Hawkeye Community College and the Planet certification system, I think there's a great opportunity to explore into that area. But again, here's where we're hobbled with, we don't have the classroom space, we don't have the tooling, nor the equipment, nor the instructor at this time. And so looking at what can we do today to move forward, I think we're maximizing our facilities and our personnel and our budgets toward that end. But I can tell you the next steps moving forward, the phase 2, beyond academics within the CT strands, would be certainly the healthcare and within the horticulture area. It's and I agree with you. It's very disheartening not to offer horticulture when we, our neighbors are cornfields. So.
Our primary employers,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I just have one quick comment and question. So when we did visit the schools, one of the things that were very important were internships, and I see that is included here. Can you, just for those who are watching, those who are watching, explain kind of the difference between an internship and co-op?
Sure. Well, can I expand it and give you a little more broader just piece on the internship? I believe that within the CTE structure, successful CTE is that everybody does get an internship. Now, an internship does not have to be a rigid opportunity like 100 hours, because I do not want to take anyone's opportunity from an internship and say, well, you need to do this or you forfeit your certificate or whatever. I want to create opportunities for different types of internships within our structure. And I want to say we offer micro internships, which might be 25 to 50 hours. We offer mentorships, we offer externships, and we offer little different experiences within that framework of the internship model. So everybody, whether they're going to a 4-year university, a 2-year, or straight to work, they all have a different opportunity to do an internship. Now, the co-op model at this time, I believe, places many of our students within paid occupational experiences. I think there's a flaw within the MOC system in that most of the ones, every student I've interviewed who are placed within those internships have no desire to do that work after they graduate. And what I would like to do is align our internships with our MOC next year and say, you know, if you have a proclivity or a desire to do a deep dive within this content area, this would be a great opportunity to use those instructors and our staff to work toward making sure they have that connected experience for something they have a strong desire in. You know, and I just think that's important to be able to do that.
Okay, I have a question, just thinking from a parent aspect, and obviously we all know in education, buzzwords change, things change, okay? For the past few years, we have been promoting academies, okay? So can you explain to the parent, to the student, how my 9th grade student who I got in the ABC Academy, how this will mesh?
You want to explain?
We are not departing from the academy structure. And so what we need to look at, and again, some of the work is to make sure that as we developed in the past, we had courses that were under each one of those academy structures. We now need to go back in and connect the academy structure to the plans of study here. And that's simply right now, that's all we need to do. The students will be still scheduled in those academies on that basis, that we're not changing any of that. Now, that's not to say that in the future, as we continue this work, do we need to maybe shift around our thinking about academies? Possibly, maybe not. But again, we're looking at this revision of how we look at our courses and that they are in plans of study and sequencing those courses. Every one of these plans of study can come within an academy. That's a very simple process for us to do. Would you like us to go back in and attach those to the top of these plans of study? Would that be okay, we can do that. We can certainly do that. That might provide some clarity on that.
So you would have 4 or maybe 5 clusters in each academy?
Exactly.
Okay.
Maybe they could just be arranged by academy and alphabetical academy.
That sounds good.
We could do that. We can do that.
I think just simplifying, but doing with the transition, because as a parent, okay, I'm hearing, well, my child's in an academy, and now I'm hearing my child's in a career path. So I just think that we need to collaborate those so that the parent can understand this
Right.
academy goes to this career path or vice versa.
I'm wondering if a graphic would help with that as well, to show that the academies are an overarching umbrella, and then the career clusters in those career pathways come underneath that. I think a graphic as well as putting that on each one of those would help.
That would be, some of us are visual learners.
Yeah, I am too.
Right. But, and then I just had a comment also, I know you did mention, and I just feel that this is the critical key component of this, having 3 children go through the transition between middle school and high school just recently. You have to have the middle school counselors totally knowledgeable and on board with this.
They are part of our meeting, and so you are definitely correct. And another piece that we need to just kind of review and see where we're going with, and in the 8th grade, their second quarter, the entire 9 weeks is a career research unit, and that always tied into then the iHappy program, which had to do with careers and identifying a 4-year plan. And also then that fed into the students identifying what career academy they were interested in the high school prior to their scheduling. So we are, we're going to work with the middle school counselors. The meeting that we have prior to winter break that we just sent today includes the middle school counselors as well.
And I just think in going over it, maybe even some more in-depth exploration, even in 6th and 7th, to just open the eyes up, because I just feel that the more they know, the more they know. And so I think that could only help the process.
I totally agree, and some of our work will be back mapping. Wow, back mapping down into the grades through elementary.
The point you brought up about the middle schools is very apropos. I've been working a lot with the middle schools and looking at the high school model. Currently, there's a misalignment between our middle schools and our high schools. My goal over the next 3 to 4 months is to realign our middle school offerings so that it's a consistent pathway that starts at least that level, and so they're an informed consumer as they move forward and says, I really like this, and what's the offering at the high school to build on top of this learning? And so right now, we have disconnected offerings at our middle school that do not connect with our high schools at this time, or vice versa. And so I'm working on a process to realign everything and make sure it's a consistent offering. That way we can build upon it, and we start, the learning kind of grows like this, not just terminates after the middle school offering.
Right. No, thank you, because I think that's the critical component. And then lastly, the question is, how many translations will this be in?
We have never translated our planning guide to this point. That would be an enormous amount of work. I can look into that.
Right now, we're working with translators, so when the
Yeah.
child is sitting there, we bring in a translator to work through that if there's a language barrier, but we haven't actually translated the whole entire document.
Right.
So there's a translator for the student and not for the parent?
Or both. If they come in, if somebody needs a Bosnian translation or Spanish, or Marshallese or whatever, they can come in and schedule a meeting and look at that together.
We also, the ELL teachers, English language learners, those teachers help those students get scheduled. So there is a lot of support provided to the students to make sure that they get into the right programming.
And then I guess if it is that way, I think it's critical we invite the parents to the 8th grade planning for high school scheduling, because I never went to an 8th grade planning session for any of my children.
No, we've never had a parent session for that, but I think that's a really good point. I'm going to mark that and see if we can't and get that to happen
But
and
even
open
if
that up.
with the language barrier, that would be even more critical, to have the parent there.
But I think we need to make sure the sequence of choices, and I'm kind of referring back to page 1, a welcoming page, which I think is a nice addition to this brochure. But you have down there, you will be making important choices that will impact your future. There's kind of two sides to that. One is, I hope we view that as sort of an iterative process where you make a choice, you explore it, you evaluate it, and it's easy to make another choice.
Right.
And the more of those you can make, especially in middle school, or even earlier, where you start to gain that during the, we heard during some of the public meetings that some parents don't want to make that choice. Well, we need to respect that so that when they make the choice, it isn't a permanent choice. On the other hand, I've heard that college is often a not so wise means of avoiding making career choices for several years.
Right.
So sooner or later, you need to, just they're not terminal. They're not.
The intent is to provide flexibility. And I know I've heard Mark say this, he might want to talk about that, is the fact that getting a student into a manufacturing pathway after a semester or 2 semesters may say, I do not want to do this. That's equally as good learning as getting into something, say, I absolutely love this. So I think that's important too. And so I agree, Lyle, with what you're saying.
What we have done, Lyle, and I got most of the our colleagues in the CT teachers to do this, is offer an exploratory in 9th grade. So Introduction to Technology, which is the engineering introductory course, and then there's an Introductory to Family Consumer Sciences. An informed consumer decision for an 8th grade student going to 9th grade might want to take both those classes 9th grade year. They're both semester-long courses. It's a survey course which touches on all the offerings that they'll be that are available to them in their 10th grade and 11th grade and 12th grade years. And so they can make an informed decision. It's a further exploration of a career pathway, but with a lot more focus. So it really focuses on that cluster. And then they go into that pathway and say, well, and I'll give you a specific example. If they do the Introduction to Technology program, they'll be exposed to 4 key concepts: STEM, transportation, construction, and manufacturing. After they complete that class, if they desire to continue that learning going that direction, they can pick one of those 4 areas and then go into start that deep dive. If they decide to back out after the first year, then they can go into construction or whatever, and they can still complete the sequence of learning in those areas. But it gives them information to be informed as they move forward through the career cluster model and the pathways.
And one of the means, this is maybe a little off subject, but you know, we have that time, particularly in middle schools, between the end of school and the later bus, whether it's flash or activity or whatever you want to call it. And it seems like maybe some of our partners or someone else could come in and offer mini sessions on what certain careers are like. And so the students could just voluntarily stay for those if they think they're interested. And then,
Tonight, we're going to have an engineer.
yeah, and then go back. So the logistics are kind of built in, and it's also something our partners can maybe get a little deeper than fundraising and that sort of thing into the, just a suggestion.
No, you know, as we move forward, and you talked about partnerships and such, there's a completely different partnership model that we're going to have to embrace as we move forward. You know, one thing is we people talk about sponsorship, and sponsors be like, well, we want you to donate. Well, that's part and parcel of a partnership. But a true partnership as we move forward, and this is going to become Crystal Buzz's work, I think, next year, is identifying key partners who want to help co-create curriculum, outcomes for students, enriched activities, part of our career and tech student organizations, our internships, externships, donors, material, supplies, equipment, and the list goes on and on from there. That's really going to be her work next year, and that's what's going to make our CTS structure strong and vibrant and powerful for our students in Waterloo.
I agree.
I see you have some deleted courses and new courses in the book, our
Yes.
regular board book.
Yes.
Quite a few more deleted than new. Is that going to open up some staff, or are the ones you're deleting some that were kind of outdated anyway?
A little bit of both. You know, a couple things. What we had in our program of studies last year is we were offering an automotive sequence here by Waterloo, another automotive sequence by Hawkeye. Now, we would register everyone within the Waterloo sequence, therefore almost not giving the students even an opportunity to even earn college credit. And it's the same class. If you looked at the descriptions and the nomenclatures of those course offerings, they're nearly identical. What I've done is basically removed the avocational, non-credit bearing programs and offered credit bearing programs for the same work. Now they're going to get elective credit and college credit concurrently. They'll come out of the program not just with the elective credit and the Hawkeye credit, but they'll be working toward their certification, like specifically in the automotive sequence, the maintenance light repair certificate. They'll be so much further ahead just by doing that little piece than they would if we kept those avocational offerings. Some of the things we had to stop doing because it didn't make sense, and that's a hard pill to swallow, and we've had to make some hard decisions, but we had to recognize the economic structure that we're currently in the Cedar Valley, our forecast of opportunities within the Cedar Valley, and we had to say what makes sense. And so, give you an example, we eliminated our textile offerings, but we brought in lieu of that, early child education program, teacher education program, a full culinary arts program, and there's one other one, consumer services program, all within the Family Consumer Services framework, which will be far more substantial for students and beneficial to students as they move forward into post-secondary opportunities or career options.
So the textile offering might find itself in the art department then, possibly, or some other?
Well, it's not in career and technical education at this time. It's not to say it couldn't come back at some point, but at this time.
Well, I'm not saying an official class on sewing, but
I
if
see what you're
someone
saying.
does
The
want to.
Content, the standard, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, certainly, I think, to be frankly honest with you, I probably would end up somewhere in the theater area because of the costumes that are needed, those type of things. So that's a great, going back to what Lyle was talking about, that's a great opportunity for a club activity. Let's create a club, to support the theater arts and those type of things, and that piece. But right now, there's probably not a person in this room that has a hand-stitched piece of clothing on. And so we have to recognize the world we live in and
Andrew, do so?
And if you do, I apologize in advance. You look great, all of you, really.
I used to.
So, but we have to recognize the world has changed. And because of the flattening of the world, Malaysia and China and other countries own that market. I want to create real opportunities for students, so when they come out of high school, whether they go to post-secondary or not, they have a real opportunity to leverage the learning that they've had within the high school sector to say, I can get a job better than $8 an hour. I can do 12, 15, 18, and I'm in a pathway that leads to 25, $35 an hour. That's kind of the whole plan.
Now, I have a question here when it says the HCC in the new courses. Are you referring that it's a concurrent course with HCC, it's held at HCC, or is it, what does the HCC designate specifically?
That's a great question, and a couple things. I'm working on, in January, when we return from break, all CT instructors will be applying for adjunct status through Hawkeye Community College. My goal is to make or have as many teachers as I can and within within Waterloo School District become adjunct faculty. If we have to have Hawkeye Community College personnel come teach our students, we have to pay 100% of tuition cost. I'm trying to keep that away from us as much as possible, and by doing so, we only have to pay 20% of every credit earned for our students. But I've talked to a lot of the deans already, and I believe we are in very good shape to get adjunct status on nearly most, or probably most of our teachers at this time. So I'm very encouraged by that conversation I've had with our with Hawkeye partners. Yes, exactly, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Well done, Sue. Wow. She got it.
Excellent, too.
The last thing I'd like to draw your attention to is just prior to sending this to print, we have a few other small things to do, including the things that we've talked about tonight. So please just note that. One of the things I'm waiting for some information from NCAA. We have unified our schools in terms of curriculum. I'm waiting for that back. We've made the application so that it will be a series of district courses, not east, not west. There was some discrepancy between that, but we've made that application to unify our curriculum for NCAA purposes, and we're waiting on that yet to finish that. Are there other questions that you have? Because we're kind of done with our presentation, but if you have additional questions, we'd love to answer those.
We've only interrupted you 14 times, so.
That's okay.
But yes, there are additional questions.
Okay, Lyle, bring it on.
Well, I'm not sure I totally understand page 1. So we won't go through all 120 pages, but we'll start.
Are you talking about Jane's letter, or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah. That's page I.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go to one.
But speaking of Jane's letter, the thing that caught my eye is the second to the last paragraph. It says, we plan continuous improvement, da-da-da-da. Make high school years meaningful, engaging, and personalized. Now, we don't have that in policy yet.
I did that for you.
Thank you. But hopefully there's an intent to.
Absolutely, and really the personalized piece is talking with every child and getting a plan that makes sense for them. Not that it's a terminal plan that they can't back out of or move around, but it absolutely is about personalizing it for everybody.
Okay, page 1. If I understand the minimum credits of 44 correctly, there are 20 fixed course. Well, first of all, some of these can be achieved in 8th grade, can they not?
That is correct.
Okay. So assuming there's 20 fixed credits here, English 9, English 10, and so forth, there's 13 categorical elections, and then there's 11 pure elections, right? Now, on the categorical elections, and what I'm talking about is there's 2 English electives, 4 math electives, so they have to be in that category. Does that mean in the future with an expanded career offerings that they necessarily have to take that course, or can automotive mechanics have enough math into it to satisfy, or a group of courses satisfy, and how do we evaluate that? Do we have them take a test out at the end, or do we, is there in classes? How do we How do we do it?
I am so excited you asked that question, and Mark can really talk to this, but that is the goal. And we're going to start with English and how we put the English standards and the expectations for English into some of the CTE block courses. I've already had a discussion with D.T. McGee, who's the head of the Board of Educational Examiners, and Eric Heitz from the DE. They're excited about what we want to do. We're going to provide a plan to them and how we might be able to do this. We went to a career tech conference about 2 weeks ago or so, and my main point of going there was to go to all the sessions I could possibly go to that have to do with embedding the Common Core and literacy and math standards into the CTE courses. I went to a fabulous session that talked about literacy in wood construction or construction, the construction pathway. It was awesome. So I've had rolling around my head these ideas, but to go and get some of that affirmed plus learn some new ways to be able to do this was very exciting. We're going to send some of our plans to both D.T. McGee and Eric Heitz. They're going to look at that and help us with getting this done. They were appreciative of the fact that we asked them beforehand instead of afterwards, but they are excited that we want to do this, and they'd really like other schools to be able to do this too. So a student taking one of those block CE courses will not only get the CTE credit, they will actually also get an English credit. And there are ways to make sure that they meet the standards in that. Remember, we're standards driven, so students have to meet those standards. And that's the goal, that's the desire. We're not sure we can do that next year. There's a lot of background that has to happen with that, but we are planning on doing it and starting it the year after.
So how does that play out then on a Carnegie Unit transcript? You know, especially with the state universities on the RFI or whatever, their evaluation, they look at the course number and how does that play into that?
I can't answer that. Mark might be able to. I don't know how our Regents universities look at that. That is part of the planning. But part of it also is working toward competency-based. So it's not just, you know, sit in the seat for a certain number of hours and do this, but it's a performance based on, do I know this and how have I demonstrated that knowledge? And that can be done in English and math as well as the CTE areas. It's a very exciting project to work on for me. So,
let me see where do I start. Debbie's absolutely right. This is something we would not implement for the 15-16 school year. It would be for the following year because it's going to take a year to kind of identify the curricular and the alignments with the Iowa Core and such. There will probably necessarily be an extension of the current program minutes to make the Carnegie units make sure they meet. Plus, we'll have to identify to make sure the teachers have the credentials necessary to be teaching that. So that's part of the work for next year. I've seen it done many, many different ways. Teacher of record, for example, I've seen it where team taught between an academic and a CTE teacher. I've seen it taught many different ways. It certainly can be done and needs to be done, and it's best practice within the CTE structure at this point nationwide. Students should be getting academic, elective, and college credit all at the same time. And that's a powerful change. And that's going to change the program of studies offering or course catalog tremendously because there'll be an opportunity to say, well, do you want to take Algebra 1 through the conventional manner, or do you want to take maybe Project Lead the Way, the IED course, and still get that? Now, it's an hour and a half long daily for a year, or do you want to do, for 50 minutes a day? It's their choice, but they're going to get project-based learning, really leveraging that project and bringing it out for all its educational value it's worth. But certainly that's a project, that's kind of a phase 2 implementation as we move forward, and that's exciting work to be doing, and that's the right work to be doing.
But it seems like, given that Algebra 1, take that, it's sort of a full semester targeted course, it's unlikely you're going to embed that in any one elective course. A career course, so it almost has to be spread. You almost have to plan it that this course you're going to get a third of it, and this course a third of it, and this course a third of it.
Well, if we extend the time, say for example, you double block the class, and you say we're going to take it and do that piece. I think it's absolutely possible. That's part of the work for next year to really do the deep dive and figure out what does it look like, how do we do it, and make sure that we can implement something that's successful. But every program can have literacy within it. The technical writing aspects within any career pathway is prevalent and needs to be done. And any career and tech ed decent program, good program, as we move forward, will be buttressed by academics. Academics are a key cornerstone as we move forward, and needs to be. And so, as we transition from where we're currently at today, which is going to look nothing like it's going to look in 2 or 3 years from now, we're on the right path toward making it better for students here in Waterloo.
And just one comment, one last comment. The perspective is, of the 44, you're only requiring 20. So, I mean, if you want to go into the career either deep or broad, I'm not sure you really have to make that deep or broad choice. It seems like you really could do both, because you've got at least 24. They can earn more than 44.
Yeah.
So you might have 28. They can earn a few in 8th grade, so you might have 32. You know, it just seems like it's pretty wide open, and that, you know, it isn't really an either or.
I just have a very curious question, and this is about labeling of the courses, the SCED number. You know, you've got the subject area, I understand, and the course title and the rigor, but I'm curious about what 050-000
Absolutely.
is.
So there is a secondary course classification system that we are required to identify all of our courses, and actually they're for high school, middle school, and elementary. The basic premise behind that, and I can explain what this is, but what the DE does, it takes these course numbers, and as we run our BEDS report and send that data to them, they actually link that then to a teacher's endorsement certifications. And if a teacher, and Bev can talk to that, if a teacher is not if they don't have the right certification or endorsement for that particular class, then they cannot teach that class, and that's part of the NCLB highly qualified teacher requirement. We've been working on this for quite a while. I put those in here for the high school because we just need to have them attached so we can work with that. So if you open up your book to any course, just open up to any course. The 01 is the first two numbers are the content area. 01 is math, 01 English, 02 math, 03 science, 04 and social studies, and so on. Then the next two numbers are a specific course number. And that narrative, they have narratives specific to each one of those course numbers, and we take our course and we say, is it similar to this? And that's a decision that Mavis Floss, Sue Little, and I sat down and worked over the course of one whole year to identify those numbers, and the next year they changed all the numbers, so we did it again. So we are pretty tight on that at this point. And then the 050, it means a semester, and then if it says 11 after that, that's a term and a year. So if you look in the language, it's going to say 1121, then it's going to say 1222, 1323, so it's term and year.
Okay.
And that helps develop our sequences of the courses as well. Now, once in a while, we get those numbers transposed, and we have to correct that, but that's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just out of curiosity, AP classes, have they stayed the same, less, more?
They are the same. We added 3 IB courses. Our hope and desire, once we work with whatever the outcome is with the high school reform and we know what we're going to do, my best hope is that we will have great opportunity for all of our high school students to take all the AP courses they want to. That's the hope. We really would like to expand that.
Going along with that, is IB going to change at all, or is it its own niche?
Charisse, would you like to answer that?
I do need to stand up. I don't sit well. Hi, Mike. How are you doing?
Good.
With IB will have an IB pathway, since it's a premier program.
It's in there.
It's in there.
Right.
And you can see it as one of the listings. And then what happened, and we found out, is that, as you know, a lot of the students weren't as prepared for some of the IB courses because we hadn't had the pre-IB, and the word of the night is back mapping, and that's what we're doing monthly right now with those advanced courses. We have those pre-IB offerings, and as you talked about earlier, 8th graders, I'm going around to the middle schools and having meetings with parents to let them know that these courses that they're taking in 8th grade, those are really the high school advanced courses, and if that's a pathway you're thinking about, you look at taking high school courses in middle school, by the time you get to IB, those are college courses you're taking in high school, so that would be that pathway.
How about the project-based? Do you see that working its way into IB at all?
Well, a lot of the IB is project-based.
Well, I understand that part, but where you would blend two different types of courses together into an extended, like what Mark had talked about.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the exciting news is that IB actually has a CTE strand. And so we are hoping to be able to look at that and see if that's something that we can add in the future to our programming.
Thank you.
One IB at a time. That's called IBCC, to be continued.
Well, being the first year of, a long-term, these students who are going through this for the first time are kind of behind the 8 ball in a few of the areas. So in making these changes or having to switch a class, they're now halfway through a semester and trying to catch up with other students. Is any of the information that they learned in the class they dropped, I mean, obviously it's good information for them in general, but is it going to affect them in the new class that they picked up? I mean, and how do they catch up, I guess?
Well, and I'll do an IB update too. I plan on doing that in advanced programming. We've had so many things go on. But for the students, it won't negatively impact their transcript because you're looking at the same level of rigor. So if they ended up transitioning out of one of the more rigorous IB courses into another IB course that has the same level of rigor, that won't, they're starting anew within that course. So we're not going to even put a W because that would impact their transcript, and we want it to look like you're already maintaining that same level of challenge, but just within maybe a different content area.
When I heard discussion that they might actually catch up on a following semester with what maybe they didn't, to be able to move forward, because a lot of these courses build on each other like a lot of the AP classes do, so that they need to maybe back up and catch up what they maybe have missed while they were struggling in another class.
The teachers, we had a lot of conversation about that. We're talking about make sure that there's some pre-testing to know where their gaps are so that they can scaffold that learning a little bit better for them. Some of the courses that they decided to transition out of, I will tell you it was probably the highest level of rigor within the IB selections, and we knew that coming in. We knew that we would deal with some challenge. We didn't know where we would be until we started it. So we would say that based on some of the transitions, the rigor of the courses, even though they're partnered, the content area, we're finding out that students have a little broader understanding of that subject so that they might be able to catch up a little bit quicker than in one where there was quite a leap in rigor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are you two ready to sit down?
Only if you are done.
Only if my mic is turned back on.
Sue, I just want to go back to your question too, because I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. On page 23 in the course study, you had asked the question about could we map each one of these, the pathways and the plans of study to an academy. And the one thing I would tell you is that for example, the comprehensive study programs like the liberal arts or the performing arts or the visual arts, if they're comprehensive, they may cross over multiple. So that's the only thing that I wanted to mention. If they're comprehensive, they're probably not going to be able to be attached to a particular academy. They'll be attached to all academies.
You could put applicable to all.
Yes, absolutely. But the rest of them would. And I think it's like semantics, but I just want to make sure we didn't mislead.
No, but I think just for parents' sake, when they
Absolutely.
see that,
It's a great,
and
yep.
their 10th graders supposedly in the Human Services Academy, then where does that map to?
Absolutely. Great suggestion.
Anything further? You guys sure? All right. Thank you very much
Mike
for
hasn't said a word.
I think he's
All right, no, I'm going to sleep, and I will make some editorial comments here, but to tie it back to the beginning, I like all of this and what we're doing, and I thank everybody that worked on this. I think it's very helpful. Bringing it back full circle to the beginning, and I think the reason, just to explain why I perked up, and I think some other board members did, and Lyle's point that we got to about making sure that all the classes were the same, though, and duplicating at classes. It gets down philosophically, but then also kind of the real world, which ties into what we're doing later in the meeting with the instructional support levy, and that's paying for our operating costs. I think the reason we all stood up is because as we're thinking about the high school task force and what we're doing, I'm going into it thinking no matter what we do and what we get the community to support with taxpayer dollars, which is going to be tough, it's going to go to bricks and mortar and not to operating expenses. And so as we think very far out into the future, I don't think with what's going on in Des Moines or in Washington, D.C., our school budgets, our operating budgets, which are about 80% personnel, salaries and benefits, I don't think they're going to change much. I think we're going to be in the same framework. Even if we do get this high school task force and we do get a vote on a bond, again, it just goes to bricks and mortar. It doesn't go to that operating cost. So we're thinking generally, adjusted for inflation, our personnel costs, 80% of our budget, have to be about the same. And what we'd like to do is make sure that we provide the best, the deepest course offerings we can. But I would say you can blame the school board in terms of saying we can't do everything because we can't tax our community enough. If we do, it gets out of whack and nobody will move here. If our property taxes are too high, our operating costs are too high. So there is a balance. It's not that people don't like kids, it's just that they can live in another community if the property taxes are too high. And so that's what we're getting into with the instructional support levy. So I think getting back to it, the reason I kind of perked up by saying we have to have the same, in some ways, depending on what we do, I do think philosophically we have to get away as a district of saying we have to duplicate programs at East and West or East and West and Expo. That gets to be a very dangerous thing, though, because generally West has more kids than East. You get into kind of pushing back and forth if you want to add a class at West and then adding a class at East and then even on to Expo. I think philosophically that can hurt all three and kind of hold us back. That being said, I don't want it to be viewed as, well, then we can just add more premier programs or courses at West at the expense of East and Expo, because I'm not getting into that. I think in the ideal world, we would have somewhat, I know we need, there's a continuum here. I know we need to have basically what we've done here with making sure everything is similar for the basics, but what would be nice is to have different course pathways that each high school can be very proud of, that might be unique. But that's a change philosophically. Now, the way you get away from this is just to have one high school. Now, that opens up a whole other thing of
We're not talking
a
about
whole,
that.
yeah, an entirely. It's such a dramatic
Who
shift.
told him he could talk?
And that
That's right.
US, it's such a dramatic shift that I don't think that is practical right now. So what we're dealing with is kind of the real world of trying to do as much as we can, but still be generally in the same budget and going forward. I just wanted to put that out there as that's to explain a little bit to everybody. It's not because we're trying to suppress anything, but we have to do something that's palatable to the public as well.
We have to be good constituents of our money.
Yep.
Exactly. Enough. I won't talk anymore.
You're all right. You're good. Well, thank you all who've stayed from that group especially. This is important stuff. I mean, when we're talking about a course catalog, this is what our kids, this is the nuts and bolts, the meat and potatoes of what our kids are doing every day. So I don't care if it takes us an hour to talk about it. It's really important. And I really do thank all of you because I know this is a sea change and it's a lot of work. And obviously we all have a lot of questions about it, but it's all because we want to move it forward in a positive and good way. So thanks again for that. And
And I'd just like to remind the board and parents and staff with any change will come bumps in the road. With the
Sure.
IB program, we knew we were going to have glitches. I mean, to have growth and expansion, you've got to expect a little bit of a setback here and there. So I just have patience, and in 5 years, it'll be awesome.
Awesome. And don't be afraid to talk to your counselors and your teachers about it. So, all right, with that being said, I believe we have the motion on the table. All those in favor of approval of this high school planning guide / course catalog, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thanks again. And with that, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. It's Exhibit K on page 29. It's the Microsoft settlement application, and Matt O'Brien is here this evening. Thanks for waiting us out, Matt.
No worries. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So those of you that have been on the board for a number of years may be a little bit familiar with this. We did this dance in a little bit of a different format back in 2010. What the Microsoft settlement is a number of years ago there was a settlement reached between Microsoft and a class action lawsuit that was posed against Microsoft, accusing Microsoft of unfair or predatory practices. And schools were one of the major beneficiaries of that settlement in that there was a rather large pool of money, some of which went to paying back consumers involved in that class action settlement. And then there was another pretty significant pool of money which actually then went to schools to enable us to infuse technology in our instruction. And at that time, that money was earmarked for support of implementing the Iowa core curriculum, which then at that point we were also launching our strategic plan. So we tried to tie the two of those together and ensure obviously that we were moving on with initiatives that corresponded to the strategic plan at that time. Flash forward a number of years, and now we are actually at a position where there's been announced a second round of the settlement. And what has really happened is not all of the money was spent by all Iowa school districts in the first round, so they're now using the remaining money to go to particular Iowa school districts, and the list is much shorter this time. With a focus on elementary literacy, specifically pre-K through second or third grade literacy. So all of our elementary schools qualify, obviously, with the focus on elementary literacy. We're only looking at our elementary schools this time. And the dollar values that we're looking at are quite a bit lower than this time, but it's still a significant chunk of money that we're eligible for that we certainly don't want to pass up. On the flip side, there are quite a few strings that are attached to this money that it can only be used for certain purchases. So it's been fun just kind of jumping through the bureaucratic hoops to make sure that we're actually spending the money for what the settlement allows the money to be spent for, while also ensuring that we're spending the money on items that will actually help us in our instruction and support the projects that the money is supposed to support. So myself, along with the team from Ed Services, met with all of our elementary principals and attempted to look at each one of their buildings, where they're at in their buildings, and attempted to develop a project which would then allow us to spend the money that they were eligible for, and those are the projects that you see in your board packet. So I know that board packet piece kind of got a little bit long, so I thought I'd just kind of summarize it for you. And there was quite honestly some additional attachments that we have to submit that I didn't put in the board packet just simply because it was already getting kind of thick as it was. But just to kind of summarize that for you, we're looking at applying for roughly about $250,000 when all is said and done, which equates to about $122,000 on the hardware voucher side and about $133,000 on the software voucher side. We do have some room to grow. This is a 2.5-year settlement period. Schools and us, in working with them, the principals had no issues identifying the expenditures on the hardware side. The software side is a little bit more difficult just because all of the strings that are attached on the eligible purchases that we could do there. So in some cases, the schools identified all of their purchases for the software side. In other cases, we will have the ability to modify our application moving forward within the 2.5-year period to still access those funds. So in some cases, the project plans, I don't want to say are incomplete, but were deliberately left open just because we didn't want to commit to buying something that we hadn't identified at this time, but we'll still have that flexibility to add some additional items down the road.
So are different schools asking for unique software?
You know, we kind of, after our conversations with our principals, all landed into some similar subscriptions base that were all geared towards literacy. So it started as a relatively open-ended conversation, And I guess it was good to see kind of as those conversations continued that the schools all really honed in on some similar themes there, and those are listed in your packet, a number of titles that a lot of the schools selected. One of the differences being that a few schools had actually piloted some of the products that are already on the list, and the settlement is written in a way that we cannot use the money to supplant existing district funding. So in other words, we can't use it to purchase something that, or continue to purchase something that we've already been involved with in the past. So that's why the list differs a little bit between schools, because in some cases, some of the schools already had access, some of this, had subscriptions to some of this software. In other cases, other schools did not, so those were added to those schools.
So you're talking actual purchase, or you're talking license, or site license, or?
Both. There's a combination of some, the majority of the software money that is in the projects is actually for subscriptions. So we'll get basically 2.5 years, the period that the settlement covers, which is this January, then for this half year, and then 2 more full years after that. So majority are subscriptions. Quite honestly, most software nowadays is either subscription-based or, it's an app that is generally a lower cost because it's made for, a tablet, that type of thing. There are some traditional software pieces on here where you would buy like a site license, or you're buying an actual X number of computers this software can run on, but most are subscription-based that are based off of number of students or number of teachers, that type of thing.
Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. Part of the discussion with the principals and yourself was that it was a limited amount of software, and some of the software was also older than what is typically available.
Absolutely.
Which runs
Yep.
into part of the subscription issue and some of
Yep.
our options and
Right.
choices.
Yep, well said.
And I noticed here, Matt, like some of the schools have pre-K, K1, 2, then some just have 2, some just
Sure.
have 3. Was that based on what they had previously, or?
That's a really good question, Sue. That was actually based off of our conversations, myself and the Ed Services team with principals, identifying who in their particular building they thought would be a good team or multiple teams to be able to participate in this project. Basically, they're identifying teachers then that will use the technology. Part of the agreement with this is then the teachers have to participate into some perception data surveys that they have to participate in, that the state gathers that data, and then by those students being selected, then the state can monitor some of the literacy assessments as well, kind of that assessment proportion of it. So it was all based off of conversations we had with principals looking at what teams logically fit according to those principals to participate. Good question.
Anything further for Matt? And if not, I'd like to go ahead and get that motion on the table. And the recommended motion, I need to get to the right page. Yeah. I went too far back in all that paper. Is the Board of Education approve the district's applications for Microsoft settlement funds and accept any resulting funding awarded?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Anything further for Matt? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thank you. That brings us to the next item on our agenda, which is Exhibit L on page 52. These are board policy changes. These are up for second reading. And the recommended motion is the board approve the following policies: open lunch period, academic progress, promotion and retention, career and technical education, career and technical advisory committee, and parental involvement. Can I get that on the floor?
So moved.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Second? Great. And Tara, you're here to answer more questions.
Sure.
Regarding 505.6, I guess I'm disappointed there's no changes from the last time. This is a no retention social promotion policy. That's fine, I guess, if that's what we really think is best for kids, but to promote kids on to a level that they're not equipped to succeed in, to me is not a good policy. So I'll probably be voting against these policies in general because of this one.
Lyle, I would add too that the policy is up for renewal, so reapproval. So we're looking at it right now. From last meeting to this meeting, there was no way that we could absolutely attack that and change anything. That's probably, honestly, a significant initiative to do that. So the reason it's back on here right now is we are asking you to approve it so that it would not be out of date, but we will be attacking that. We've talked Ed Services and Charles and I have talked about that. We definitely want to look at that, but it was not going to happen from last time to this time, so that's why. That's
Charles,
the
do you have
rationale.
anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think we certainly want to look at making sure our students are ready for the next grade and what criteria is best to identify that. And, Dr. Lee talked about standards-based instruction and making sure that our students are mastering it. And that's as Dr. Lindeman says, that's quite a tall order in a quick turnaround, and we really need to work with where the state's going.
Mm-hmm.
They're already bringing up some tools already that is looking at baseline students' reading skills, and we're utilizing that in 3 schools. So it's an ongoing process, and even the state themselves are kind of working with the results they're getting regarding what is being proficient at grade level, for example, in first, second, and third grade literacy.
Question, what's the effect of letting this policy lapse?
Honestly, there's no effect right now except for that we're, quote unquote, out of compliance by not having it up to date for 5 years, or within the 5 years. But we do have a site visit next year, which is when they actually check to make sure, and that's when it's actually noted for the district and of course for the public at that point in time. So we could let it lapse, or we could reapprove it in its current state if you felt comfortable with that, and then bring it back when we actually have a substantial change, which is what we do on a regular basis. When something changes, we might bring it back in a year, or if there's a change.
How long would it take, do you think it would take to go through this and make the appropriate changes?
That's a hard question to answer. It depends on what kind of changes. If you're talking about, tweaks, 3 months. If you're talking about really doing a policy that has some teeth, I couldn't answer that right now without knowing exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
Well, and Tara, isn't there a cycle that all of our policies come back through? But we
Correct.
could perhaps board direct it, and for those of you, Sue, I don't know who else is on the policy committee, but we could say to the committee, could you please move this up in the rotation schedule or whatever needs to be done?
So the way
Duly
it's
noted.
presented is each month when we have our committee, then if a policy is up for review, that would be usually when it would come forward, or if any individual department person by whom that policy would fall under would bring it to the committee's attention that it would need to be updated or changed. So if Ed Services were to bring this policy forward at any time, then it could be altered.
It could be addressed.
Correct.
It doesn't have to wait for
No,
that period
no.
of time. Okay.
Well, and I think with this policy, it's critical that we get it right. And so it could take 2 years based on what we're getting from the DOE. And,
Right.
I don't want to just formulate a policy and not have it be effective. A new policy,
Right.
this has worked now.
Right.
We want to make something more teeth into it in the future, but can we do that in 2 months? Probably not.
Right, and approving a policy is really just a swipe of the pen. Enacting a policy and having all of the resources that we need to make it happen is another deal. So, we can do however you want to. We could either let it lapse, which I would not recommend, but we could do that, but we absolutely would bring it back. We could bring it back in 6 months and tell you where we are, or we could bring it back in a year.
Yeah.
We could absolutely do that, but of course, the policy that we're asking you tonight to approve would be the one that's in front of you.
Well, now we could put it on a 6-month rotation, that every 6
Right.
months, the committee wants to have an update on this,
Yep.
and have,
Certainly could.
Yeah, I guess I could support that. I would suggest the policy isn't working now based on our overall
Right.
performance and graduation rate, and it's really critical. So, I don't want it to go 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, because that's that many classes.
Right.
But the key is, what do you do with those that don't reach the what did you say, significantly non-compliant, or Or what-
Significantly discrepant.
Okay, significantly discrepant. I mean, you have to have a plan for those.
Then you have to have a definition, as we spoke last
Which
time,
there
of
isn't a
what
definition.
discrepant is.
Yeah.
You know.
So we need to, I think there is a sense of urgency here, so I guess I can support it as long as we bring it back in 6 months.
The thing that we would probably want to look at is, because I don't believe that this is actually in our board goals, it's not a high, medium, or low. So, I mean, that was kind of the draft of what we're going to work on. So if we want to bring this up in the status, we probably need to do that as we work through my work as the superintendent, because this is kind of a little bit of a new direction, a good one and a right one, but I want to make sure that I know that this is not currently in our.
Right.
And then it's a priority.
Exactly.
And then we'll have to
realign some other
realign.
things. Right, right.
Minor question on the open lunch period. It's pretty, one sentence. From what I understand, there is no open lunch for high school students, so what's the reasoning for this policy as it states?
It's just a policy to say where the decision-making lies.
Okay.
And there used to be open lunch, and I remember as a.
When I was-
We came to the board and said, we got to cancel because there's too much garbage.
Right.
Oh, I remember that.
We came back
Right.
and to the board to see if we could reinstate open lunch.
Okay.
So I guess I would amend the motion to say, provided 505.6 is extended for only 6 months.
6 months. Can we do a friendly amendment on that? Would you be
Sure.
comfortable, let's see, was that Andrea? Or who?
I think I second.
Andrea and Mike, would you accept a friendly amendment to that?
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be okay.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
But I guess, and I'm not saying supporting it to be completed in 6 months.
No,
It's
no.
reviewed in 6 months.
Right, reviewed,
No,
especially if we're trying.
don't think
Yeah,
we can get it.
I'm concerned about that, but and I'm not exactly sure how, by law, policies are approved for 5 years, so I'm not sure that, I don't know, honestly, that you could put in a policy and put an expiration date on it, because the expiration date by law is 5 years. So what you could do is direct me to bring it back to you within 6 months. I'm not sure we can put an expiration date. Bev, do you know about the
It's typically 5 years.
Dr.
but
McNulty?
know.
I don't know that you can. You can bring
You
it
can
back
bring
at
it
any
back.
point in time, but I've never seen an expiration date. It just automatically expires in 5 years. So,
Right.
I don't know.
So with the caveat
We
that
can
we'll
bring
bring
it
it
up for
back.
review
But
again.
we'll bring
That
it
you
back
could,
for,
yeah.
Yeah,
within 6.
I just thought I was hearing that the friendly amendment was that it expires in 6 months. I think that's not,
No, that it be reviewed.
okay,
Would be reviewed
certainly,
in 6
certainly.
months.
Yeah, because proposing a new one can open up a lot of different boxes. Mm-hmm.
Do I need to restate that then? Okay. And the friendly amendment is in reference to policy 505.6, correct? Okay. Yes. Right. So I would ask that we vote to approve those board policy changes as amended. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Chair votes aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Where's Michael?
There's Michael. Thanks, Tara. The next item on our agenda is Exhibit M, which is on page 58 of our agenda. And before Michael starts, I'm going to go ahead and get this motion on the floor, that the Board of Education approve the following resolution to participate in the instructional support program for the Waterloo Community School District. Thank
Second.
you. And a second, Angela? Thank you. Andrea, thank you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Coughlin.
Thank you. I don't quite have the voice that Mark does, so I'll have to speak a little louder. Get it going. I'm also providing the paper copies of the instructional support levy PowerPoint that we will go through tonight. It is very similar to what we did 2 board meetings ago as we considered the motion to pass a motion with the intent to participate in the instructional support levy. It was then noticed as a published notice within the 10 to 20 days of this meeting. The public hearing was held at the beginning of the meeting and is now on the agenda to consider to participate in the instructional support levy. Just going to try to go through these, and please stop me, raise your hand, ask questions, whatever. Some of this is review. I just want to make sure that we're all very clear on what action the board is taking tonight. The instructional support levy, or the ISL, as I'm going to refer to it as, is a lot easier to say. It is a program that started in the early 90s as an opportunity for local districts, for districts to make a local funding decision to supplement instructional programming. Currently, our budget is made up of our cost per pupil times our enrollment. Currently, that is just under $70 million, and the instructional support levy is 10% of that by code. Initially, it was partially funded by the state. Initially, it was about 25% funded by the state. But as the state set aside money for this, they never increased it. So the pot of money that they established as more and more districts enacted the instructional support levy, the share that the state could contribute to each local district diminished. And just a few years ago, it got to such a point that they totally ended state participation. But on the other side of that, they did not allow us to make up the difference of what the local district could raise based on that 10% of the regular program district cost. So when we have potential of $6.9 million in funding without the state portion, what we are enacting, what we are funding is $4.7 million, roughly.
Michael, did the state eliminate the mechanism to fund it or just the funding?
It got so small to every district that they eliminated the money. The mechanism currently is not eliminated. It's still part of the law.
So they could fund it if they wanted to.
They could fund it if they wanted to. That's why, as you'll see some of the wording a little later, that state funding is still in there as an option if they ever chose to reinstate the state funding.
No appropriations.
There's no funding of it.
That would have to come from the legislature. How do we fund the ISL? It can be funded by property tax or a combination of property tax and income surtax. Currently, we are doing it by property taxes. And I just wanted, one point I missed on the first slide is that we have been enacting this program since 1995. And it was approved by board action in 95 and in 2000 and in 2006 and in 2010. And the current program ends in next school year of 2015-16. So that's why we are looking at renewing that at this time.
And this is included in the total 15.8 mils or whatever we're at, right?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So the property taxes, it works just like we raise any kind of property tax, that it's assessed against the dollar value of property, residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, and it's paid by all the property owners in the district. So it is not state funded, it is all property tax. And we'll talk about the numbers in just a second. The other side is income surtax. And the difference of that is it is a percent of the income tax owed that the percentage is based off of, not what you have earned. And I'll have an example in the following page. And it applies only to individual income tax, not corporate income tax. So as opposed to just property owners paying for the instructional support levy or ISL, all people who pay income tax would pay a share of the ISL if the board enacts that.
That's what I was gonna ask.
If you look at the next slide that I just put up, the applicable school is the district of residence. So even if you live in Waverly and you send your kids here, you don't pay it as part of the Waterloo School District. And it is your residence on December 31st.
It would include renters.
Yes, anybody that pays income tax, state income tax, and they reside in the district. So I pulled a form of the 2013 Iowa taxes and pulled a couple lines off of that just so we could be clear on where this number comes from. So line 38, after all of your W-2 work, your taxable income is $50,000. Based on the table of married with 4 exemptions, you would pay $2,886 of state income tax. There was a section of credits after that, so I threw a few of those in there and reduced it down to $2,586. So this is what you owe. This is what you owe in state tax. It's not what you owe minus what you've already paid. It's not what you owe compared to what you've earned. It's from the tax tables of saying, based on your income, this is the state tax that you owe. So again, this example is $50,000 of taxable income, line 38. The table would say $2,886, $2,886 you would owe in state tax. Throw in a few credits to bring that down to $2,586. If we had a 1% surtax, you would pay an additional $26. Any questions on that? Okay. So I think I again gave you a printout with the wrong information of our current property taxes. Apparently my exhibits have been going back and forth on whether I said $1.67 or $1.69. It really is $1.67. But it's rounded out to 5 places, so that's part of the issue. Currently, the $4.7 million in the 2015 budget that is funded by all property tax has a levy of $1.67. So you can just use that as comparison. So it is funding 4.7 plus million at $1.67 of property tax. For income surtax, how that would compare, each 1% of surtax would equal roughly 22 cents of property tax. So just to give you a little more information on that, for the budget year of 2015, I think it's actually the 2013 state income tax that was paid in Waterloo. It was just a little bit over $63 million of income tax that was submitted from the Waterloo District for state income tax. Well, 1% of that would be $630,000. That's how much 1% of surtax is worth. So if you then convert that to a tax rate, you would take the 630,000 and divide it by the valuation of the district. And that's where you get the 22 cents plus a little change. So every 1% of income surtax equals approximately 22 cents of property tax that it would replace. This does not bring in any additional money. It just shifts it in between surtax and property tax. This program, remember I said our current program gets done in June of 2016. So we have one more budget year that income surtax is not an option. We're still under the old law, under the old approval, the old program of ISL, which is only property tax. So as we would get to the 16-17 year, the budget would be brought to the board for approval in April of 2016, and that's when a decision would be made of how much, if any, income surtax would be levied. When we approve income surtax as an option, it does not require that it be used. So you could still put it in as an option for a funding mechanism, but every April, you would have a choice to decide how much income surtax you would choose to levy, and you can change it every year. It's not locked in tonight. It's not locked in for more than 1 year once the budget hearing takes place in April of 2016. And again, I want to just emphasize the point that it is not a requirement that it's used. It's just an opportunity for to be used as a funding mechanism depending on how the board chooses to levy the budget each year in April.
And Michael, just for the people at home, you do have this in your presentation, but there's also a maximum for what the income surtax can be, which is only 7%. We
There
can't
is.
take the full 10%.
Yep. So when you have 7%, I'm sorry, when you have 4.7 million, that is the maximum that you can levy under ISL, and you have 63,000, that equates to 1%. 63,000 times 7 will fund just about all of the income surtax, or the ISL through income surtax, and I'll show you a little chart on that. But again, that is, so you've got a limit on that too, of saying you can't go over the amount. And so in the current calculations based on 2015 numbers, of course, those are going to change because our cost per pupil is going to change, our valuation is going to change. So that's why it's an individual decision every single year of how the board addresses it with the budget. So how has the ISL continued? Since we have done it for 20 years, as we are looking at the end of our program in 2016, it can be approved by the voters for a 10-year period. And we would have to go through notice and voter approval as we have common to PEPL. It's not a supermajority, it's just a majority. But the board has chosen the second option since the beginning of this program, that the board can, by board action, by board vote, approve it for a 5-year period just by board action. So then the new program would be effective for the 16-17 year through the 2021 school year. And then it would have to be brought to the board again. Just some statistics as far as how many districts use this, and it is most, if not just about all. 97% of all districts in the state, or 335 out of 346, participate in instructional support levy. The vast majority of them are levying the full 10%. Because that is also a choice that the board has every year. That the recommended motion tonight is to levy up to 10%. If you decide in 3 years that you only need 5% or 6%, or you have that flexibility as well. So it really just gives you the opportunity and some options as far as how you deal with it, whether it's all property tax, whether it has income surtax, and whether you want to do 10% or up to 10% of all of these components. But as far as the state is concerned, 82% of the people of the districts that use it, or 276 districts, use some level of income surtax. And that is all over the board. Everything from 1%. Yes, Mike?
Oh, sorry. This is to answer Angie's question, because I looked it up here. You asked about Waverly. So if you lived in Waverly and worked at Veridian and Waterloo, you'd pay Waverly Shell Rock has the 10% levy, and then they have the 6% income surtax.
Okay.
So you would pay it. Even though you work in Waterloo, you'd pay it because you live in Waverly.
Yeah.
And then pay there. And that's like most districts.
Based on your risk.
And now, Michael, so there's 11 districts that don't participate. Is there a reason why they don't participate? Are they small districts? Is there generalization of that? Or is there
I haven't investigated that to see who isn't on the list.
Right, yeah. Okoboji, maybe?
like they don't need the money? I see South Polk there.
Well, when it's an annual board decision, it really can fluctuate.
Andrew, don't write that, Andrew.
And
Write that down.
the determining factors in each district would play into that decision. Just again, as far as how the property tax and income surtax proration is split, you can see it's just a little bit higher in property tax collected as compared to income surtax. So there's 187 million collected, 105 is property tax, 82 million is surtax. And remember I told you about the part that the state no longer funds? That's the 72 million listed at the bottom of the page.
So the resolution is simply to participate or not participate in the program without regard to whether it's going to be property tax or income tax?
The resolution would set that we want to participate and we are going to use property tax and income surtax as an option. It's an available option to fund it.
So we would have to have at least 1% then?
No.
Oh.
You just have to say it's an option.
Okay, so we're not saying we're going to use it, we're just, okay.
Saying we need it as an option. We'd like it as an option.
I would say,
Like a line of credit.
yeah, but more so that we're not utilizing it, we're reserving the right to utilize it.
Correct.
I would say reserving it more than utilizing it.
Yep.
And we make that decision in April
April. And it can be different every year.
of this year to be effective?
Next,
16.
this spring in April,
Yeah.
we're still under the old ISL plan, so it's all property tax for 15-16.
Okay.
Then that program ends. Action tonight would start the new program for 16-17,
Okay.
which could have the availability of income surtax as an option. Okay?
So it's a little premature, but I think it might be time to shift part of it from property tax to income tax. I don't know what number, but it'd be nice to take about $1 million off property tax.
And we've been talking about this in finance over the last year, which is why when we brought it forward, we wanted to add the verbiage that had that option.
Okay.
I think, as Mike said, to utilize, not necessarily that we're going to, but
The last slide is a comparison of the UEN districts that use ISL and use a surtax rate. So Cedar Rapids, Fort Dodge, Iowa City, Mason City, Muscatine, Sioux City, and Southeast Polk all use an income surtax rate. And you can see they're all different numbers. And the surtax share and the property tax share tells you for Cedar Rapids, 5% that they levy for income surtax covers 92% of their ISL. The rest of it is property tax. I'm assuming by looking at that number, that's as high as they could go. In our case, 7% as high as we could go right now to fund the majority of it. So as a comparison at the bottom, in the red numbers, Waterloo doesn't have to do any. So the surtax could be 0. It would all be 100% funded by property tax. Just to give you a number of reference, at 1%, that would cover 14% of the ISL under surtax and 86% under property tax. And the maximum at 7% would do 98%, just about all of it, and leave just a little bit for property tax. So,
So just in, so for districts that are property poor, this would be a good option for leveraging additional funds for instruction. Not additional, but away.
It would more equitably spread out the burden of the funding.
Anybody who worked.
But in a property poor district, if you add 1% to the income surcharge, it's going to have a larger effect on property tax than it would in a property rich district.
Yes. But that's why it's a local decision, because it really affects all districts a little bit different, unique to their own situation. So I think the issue of the high school reform in front of us gives us another option of how we can structure our revenue.
Is there anything further for Michael? Any more? Okay. So that motion is on the table. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
I'm sorry.
This
Is it
one
roll
needs to be a
call?
roll call vote. Excuse me, I just realized that. My bad. So I'm going to turn it over to Pam.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Ms. Sparks?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Weekly?
Yes. Motion passed. Great. Well, that concludes the action items on our agenda tonight. So we can move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Lindeman?
Well, in interest of time, I'm going to cut like 7 items off. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I only have just a couple. So, first of all, I know that, well, Debbie's still here, but, you know, congratulations to those who worked on the program of study. And I actually just have to congratulate the board, because I'm not sure since I've been in Waterloo if I've heard such a lively, specific, comprehensive conversation about the program of studies. And I think that's just as, you know, symbolic of where we are at this point in time. So I just, you know, I just thank you, because I have a feeling that that doesn't happen in every district. So the fact that you were, you know, your questions are amazing. I think that's fantastic. So, and then just the other thing is, I wanted to mention the Battle of Waterloo that's coming up next Thursday and Friday night. It's December 18th and 19th, and it's really kind of a team event with 32 teams competing, and it's in Waterloo. It's East High School, West High School, and Columbus, and it's a collaborative effort, and it's really an amazing thing. So, and I know it's late, but I just have to tell you, I read this on the internet, so I know it's true, because there's not anything on the internet that's not true. But it said that between our high schools, if we look at the high schools of Waterloo, the city of Waterloo, we've had more team state championships, more individual state champions, more, and this is wrestling, more state place winners, more state qualifiers, and more NCAA national champions than any other city in Iowa. And I think that's really an amazing stat. And so I just, you know, I think the Battle of Waterloo, I love it. I'm from a wrestling family. My brothers were wrestlers. And so I think it's a great event. So I hope everybody can get out to that. And I know it seems a little early, but Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone who is sitting up here and out in the audience and those who are watching. So that's it.
Thank you. All right, let's see. I started with Andrea first last week, so 2 weeks ago. So Mike, I'm putting you on the hot seat tonight first.
Well, it's dangerous when you ask me to talk, because then I'll go into
Yeah.
a philosophical
Maybe if we get
diatribe.
first,
So
I'll get
I will,
the-
I will, I
I'll get
will
the hook.
keep my comments very brief. I want to thank everybody that was involved in the program of studies, because it is helpful, and I think there is a great deal of attention that's focused on that and making things better. And it looks like we're getting it. It's a long process, but that's what we're working at. So, thank you all.
Sue?
Well, again, I want to reiterate what Mike said, Debbie, and I guess it's just encouraging to see people that are excited and on fire to make the programs better for our students, and I think that's a cool thing, and I appreciate the administration just really going gung-ho and trying to make it better. Students work hard. You have 10 days left. I believe I got a email from a teacher, 10 days, so take your quizzes, take your quizzes seriously, your tests seriously, study, and respect all the hard work that your teachers do to make you learn. And Merry Christmas.
I just want to do an acknowledgement for Waterloo Schools. I was given the opportunity through my employer to attend a national conference called TASH, which is for those with significant different abilities. And some of the horror stories that were displayed in ways that we need to be more inclusive were just, in the other districts, were just mortifying. And I was like, oh my goodness. I think that we do a really good job of making sure that students who are able to be included are included into the classroom, and I think that there's a lot more that we can do, but just that I was just very proud to be coming from Waterloo Schools and being able to say, like, we've already done that. So.
Thank you. Okay, Andrea, I'm going to come back on this side now.
Okay, well, I just think this, the high school planning guide is a very wonderful, wonderful thing. And, I mean, it offers a lot of opportunities for our students, many different choices. I think that's great. And thank you for all the hard work.
Mike?
I'd just like to request maybe an update with the athletic task force on where that's going in the coming meetings. And Merry Christmas to everyone on the board and out there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I feel good about tonight's meeting because, not to diminish the other items on the list, but the lion's share was on the academics, and I think that's appropriate. And I think the program of studies, which is good, fostered a lot of that, the way it's put together. And so congratulations to everybody. I think we're definitely on the right track, so I feel good about that, and happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
And could I add one more thing to talk about athletics? And Jane, getting to your point, so the Des Moines Register ranks high school all sport rankings every year. They come out in July. And this year, and it's all sports, boys and girls. This year, West was 18th. I think they're about 60. Division of 4A high schools. West was 18th. Cedar Falls was 24th. East was 30th. So both East and West made the list in the top half.
Anything else from anyone? I'm just going to echo all that again. Say ditto. Have a safe and happy holiday season, and we'll see you next year. Thanks. We are adjourned.
Next year.
Oh, we can't be adjourned without me asking. Okay.
No.
I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Now we're adjourned. Psych.
Right.
Oh, can we vote on that? Everybody good? Yes? Yes.